Subscribe to Teckoh on YouTube or you will forever be a bot at Fortnite.
What's up everyone, and welcome back to another video. So with the obviously increasing skill ceiling in Fortnite, I know a lot of you guys are feeling a bit left behind right now. You're playing the game, trying to improve, but the sweaty 12-year-olds on Adderall just keep destroying you with no effort. At this point in time, it's really easy to feel like you're falling behind in Fortnite and not improving, and that's why in today's video, I'll be going over the best methods that you can use to speed up your improvement in Fortnite Chapter 2 Season 5. And before we get into it guys, I'd like to quickly mention that if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to drop a like on it and subscribe with post notifications on so you don't miss a single video. But with that said, let's get right into it. Anyway guys, the first tip I have for you all in this video is quite possibly the most important one, and that's practicing in Arena. Similar to the past few seasons of Fortnite, Arena is still one of the best ways to improve in Season 5. The thing about Arena is that while the endgames aren't super stacked, it'll still allow you to practice a ton of important things like your drop spot, game sense, fighting, team chemistry if you're in duos and trios, and generally it's just the most realistic competitive practice you can get at basically any given point. Even if you look at pro players, they also grind Arena to improve their gameplay. In fact, pretty much every single pro is playing it right now as opposed to other forms of practice like creative 1v1s and zone rule scrims and stuff like that. Now, I get a lot of questions from you guys saying that you're trying to play Arena, you're playing it a lot, but you just don't feel like you're improving. If you feel like that's you, the biggest tip I'd give for those of you who are grinding Arena but struggling to improve is to focus specifically on learning from your mistakes. Every time you lose in Fortnite, try to figure out what actually happened leading up to your death, and then try to figure out how you can avoid that happening in future matches. This is easily one of the best and most efficient ways to improve faster by specifically targeting the skills and areas that you're struggling with and improving on them directly. Next up, I strongly believe that for the majority of you guys, you're best off with Arena as your priority for practice, simply because it's so accessible, you can queue up in seconds and you're matched with players of similar skill level. But with that said, for players who are reaching a higher level in the game or simply need something to do outside of their Arena games, this next section is going to be for you. What I want to do is discuss a few alternative practice methods and what you can use them for. Starting off this section, I want to talk about a fairly old and well-known practice method that I feel is still pretty underrated in this season, and that's Zone Wars. In recent seasons, a lot of players have kind of stopped paying attention to Zone Wars, but honestly, I can tell you guys right now, Zone Wars is still a great way to practice fighting under pressure, your game sense and endgame, and your overall mechanics and fighting skill. I recommend doing Zone Wars occasionally just on the side to work on these skills in particular, especially if you can find a skilled group of players to do it with, whether that's from a Discord Scrim server, a group of friends, or whatever else that may be. Another practice method that's definitely worth keeping in mind is realistic 1v1s. Especially if you're struggling to win fights in Arena, you can utilize realistic 1v1s to work on your overall fighting skill in-game. When you play realistic 1v1s, the best way to improve using them is going to be to practice against another skilled player. The truth is, a lot of you guys are probably doing a lot of 1v1s already, but not improving because of your opponent's skill level. Let's be honest, if you're going up against a kid who you can easily destroy every single round, think someone like it's Jarian, then you won't improve because it's simply so easy for you. If you're not struggling in the fights, then you're not going to be able to find your weaknesses and work on them. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say here is that when you do 1v1s, try to find another player at or above your skill level. That way you actually have a sort of stimulus to improve. And as a side note, if you need to find some people to 1v1, then be sure to check out my Discord server where we have a ton of chats you can use to find people. The link to that is going to be at the top of the description if you're interested. Alongside those methods, I also want to take a bit to discuss scrims. Now, a lot of you guys who are looking to play competitively probably already play a fair amount of scrims in servers like Atlantis or Open Scrims, and while those can be helpful practice for some aspects, I'd actually advise against using those. Now, don't get me wrong, scrims can be really good endgame practice, but the issue with most of these scrim servers comes in the form of zone rules. In a zone rule scrim match, the layout is essentially like this. You can land anywhere you want, but you're not allowed to fight until either the 3rd or 4th zone. This brings up a major issue because in zone rule scrims, you're essentially spending 15 minutes of your time looting, farming, and preparing for an entire 5 minutes or so of practice, and that's also assuming you don't die quickly after fighting is allowed. Ultimately, zone rule scrims can be really good for endgame practice, but the fact that they waste so much time alongside the fact that they're so unrealistic and only allow you to practice endgame, with that in mind, I'd advise against using them, at least not as a primary form of practice. If you really do want to grind scrims, then what I'd recommend doing as opposed to zone rule scrims is playing ladders instead. Ladders are essentially custom tournaments hosted by scrim servers which allow you to basically play a normal tournament format with stacked games. In these ladders, the main goal of the people playing is actually to get ranked up in the scrim server. For example, the East Open server has a bunch of ranks including Open, Challengers, Gold, and finally Pro, which gives you access to the practice server, aka Prac as people tend to call it. These ranks basically serve a few purposes. They allow you to show your skills since you have the rank to back yourself up, they allow you to access private scrims and more difficult ladders, and they obviously bring you one step closer to reaching the practice server, which is basically the top pro server in Fortnite. And since there are no zone restrictions or anything like that, the players are actually pretty good and endgames are still pretty stacked. So overall, if you're looking to play some scrims, I'd recommend playing ladders if you're trying to be a competitive player as opposed to those zone rule scrims. And finally, the last practice method I want to briefly mention is creative maps. Creative has obviously come a very long way since its release back in Season 7, and a ton of maps have popped up that allow you to practice your mechanics and improve extremely fast. So another thing I would strongly recommend you guys do is pick out a few maps that you enjoy and practice them on a consistent basis, whether that's daily, every other day, or just whenever you're able to. What I recommend doing in particular when it comes to creative maps is using maps that target the things that you're struggling with. Since there's such a massive variety of maps available, there's no reason why you should be sitting there doing something you're already super good at. Think if you already know how to triple edit and you can do it every time, then going into an edit map and doing a bunch of triple edits isn't really going to be a good use of your time. Try to figure out what particular weaknesses you have in Fortnite, and then figure out which creative maps you can use to target said weaknesses. And if you need a place to start, I might mention that I'd recommend checking out another video I recently made where I discuss the best maps that you can use to improve at the game, as that video has some really good maps you can use to target a bunch of different skills. I'll put the link in the description along with the card up on screen if you want to go check that one out. And with that said, the last thing I want to briefly touch on for this video is your surroundings. Honestly, I find this to be one of the most overlooked yet most important aspects of improving at Fortnite, especially if you're trying to reach a pro level. The players that you actually surround yourself with will have a massive impact on you as a player. To put it simply, if you're hanging around with players who really don't care, then you'll stop caring as well. One of the biggest tips that I can give you all is to surround yourself with other players who are motivated and all around positive people. Having other players you can practice with, learn from, and improve with is one of the most important and beneficial things that you can do as a player, and it'll strongly reflect in your gameplay. In conclusion, just try to surround yourself with players who have a positive mentality just like you and want to improve, and that should make a massive difference. But with that said guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Hopefully this guide sets you on the right track to speed up your improvement in Fortnite. If you enjoyed this video and feel like it helped you out, then don't forget to drop a like on it and consider subscribing if you want to see more content just like this in the future. But with that said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.